Okay, good morning, everyone. So my name is Yalemisew, and so today I'm talking about formative assessments co-created with students for large classes. And yeah, so I will introduce the topic with a little bit of background. So probably most of the people here know me. I am teaching data literacy and analytics for the 21st century module for almost programs in all faculties. And so I will give you a bit of context on that one. So it is a big module with very large number of students involved in that. And one important thing that differentiates it is delivered online and asynchronous most of the time, but I have some face-to-face classes with some of the students. So it is essentially a big online asynchronous module. And so it is delivered since 2020 to 2023. So this year it's fourth iteration in the DCU Futures program, and 14 programs from 5 faculties. It keeps growing every year. And approximately 2,000 students take the module every year. So what does that mean? It is designed in a form of micro-curricula. So it is quite a dynamic and a different design. So the module is decomposed into 14 micro-curriculums that are related to 7 data literacy and analytics competencies. As you can see, the middle one can be considered as a 5-credit module, or some programs prefer to take it using R or Python. But majority of the programs do data literacy and analytics with spreadsheet. So it can be composed into 5-credit module, 7.5-credit module, or it can be embedded individually into different other modules. So there are around 23 modules that are embedding the content of this module. So it is really big and large. So what do we do? Here, from 2022 and 2023 cohorts, we collected feedback. And then one of the things that the students mentioned is that they want the content to be engaging because it is online asynchronous. So they don't have, someone to keep nagging them to do things. So the content needs to be really engaging, and passive consumption may not work. So one of the feedback was, could you make it more interactive, engaging? And the second one was, can you provide us more practical questions or activities? So the intervention that I introduced here is to collaboratively design something with the students themselves. So this is a big take, as Anna-Marie already said, and Christina has mentioned this. It is a big risk. We took a very big risk, but we do it systematically. So I will talk about that as well. So what we introduced here is co-created questions, practice questions. So we invited students, and then we design the assessment, formative assessments actually, with the students. So I used what I called it FACCTS framework afterwards. FACCTS is formative assessment questions co-created with the students. And so the students are at the center of this activity. And first, once the students finish the module, after they finish the module, I identified around 10 students and invited them to work with me. I got some subtle funding for that one. And so I selected 4 students, and we spent a lot of time together. And so we identified some of these micro-curricular topics, 7 of them out of the 14. And then what we did is we started to work together in a form of more kind of workshop kind of stuff, but it stays for 4 weeks. So first, we do collaborative module revision. So I asked all of them to review the module content, the 7 topics again after they finish their own. And so we spend 1 week doing that. And during that time, we have revised the content. I asked them to take notes, to take summaries, and to write their study strategies as well. And then after that, what we did is I asked them to convert their notes and their summaries into formative questions. So they converted, each of the students converted their own, and then I also encouraged them to select the appropriate questions. Actually, I spend a lot of time giving them training on each stage. And then once we did that, then again, we come together and collaboratively start to review the questions, select the questions. And if there were any questions that don't, fit, then we revised them, we improved them, and some of them we deleted. And then we have that final selection. After that, we have sandbox implementation. So one of the other steps that I took is I trained the students how to use H5P interactive content development. And then I asked them to convert their questions into H5P format. So that took us around another week. And finally, I revised all these questions, around 350 formative questions, and then implemented them in my actual module. All these things happened on a sandbox outside of the visibility of the students. So 350 formative questions, fairly distributed across the 7 topics, 7 summaries, and almost around 480 hours of time spent on this one altogether. By the way, one of the students was a volunteer, and that makes a lot of difference actually. Then what happened? Okay, what happened? So I implemented that into the module. So once the students finish the topics, then they have formative assessment questions. This is an optional one. So if the students like it, then they can take it. And then they can move to the final assessment, which is the summative one. So this happens on each of the microcurricula. So some of the questions look like this. So I will quickly move. So drag and drop questions, multiple choice questions, fill the blank questions, and immediate feedback is integrated from the notes of the students. And then they also be able to see their progress and their summaries. So once they are happy, they can move to the summative assessment questions. And yeah, participation in the first year, the participation was between 10% to 25%. Not everybody jumped on the optional assessment, and it has so many different factors actually. And then we analyzed the impact. So what I did is I took those students who didn't participate in the formative assessments, and I took those students who participated, and I tried to analyze their difference. So in general, there is an increase in the results of the students who participated in this, except DLAT 3 and DLAT 7. I don't know why the opposite happened in these two, but essentially these two topics are more theoretical than the rest of them. Yeah, and also I looked at their engagement in terms of how many times they tried to do the assessments. And then in that case, in every of these topics, so those students who participated in the formative assessment wanted to do more in their summative assessment. They wanted to push their result higher. So that is the situation. And all those that have stars, the difference is statistically significant. Okay. So I collected some feedback from the students as well. And yeah, so the first one, this inclusion of FACCtS improved their engagement. And in the second case, it facilitated the metacognition process. So this is very critical and important. Students reflect back and try to change the way they study the content. So very interesting testimonials happen here after the interviews. And finally, yeah, the next steps. So I would like to build a transferable framework for this one for other people to use it if it is applicable for them. And also, I would like to see how we can improve engagement of the student, participation of the students from 10 to 25% to 50 to 60%. And I have already implemented some interventions on that. Hopefully, this round, students will pick up involving in the summative assessment. Sorry, in the formative assessments. And final conclusion. So engage students in the design or redesign activity of your module if you have large classes, and also provide formative assessment to boost engagement. So like formative assessment is one way of, keeping them engaged. And then when you do that, then I saw that immediate feedback really matters. So students get immediate feedback, they get stars, they get X out of X, then the progress is visible. So they are very much happy. And some of them consider it as a game to interact with. And finally, it's good to collect evidence of your intervention and probably share it like this. Thank you so much. Yeah.